And good evening, everybody. This is a historic day, a day following the release of that so-called bipartisan border bill. It blew up, and did it ever. In the works for months, ballyhooed as not only the solution to illegal immigration, but establishing a secure border as well. And today, it died. It was killed in the Senate at the hands of Mitch McConnell. And because the people's voice was heard so loudly and so clearly over the past 1.5 days, and for at least this one time, the governed raised their voices, and we did not meekly consent. Hallelujah. The authors of the bill, the Marxist Chuck Schumer and Marxist collaborator, Republican leader Mitch McConnell, proudly standing shoulder to shoulder with McConnell's hand-picked stooge to boast of their creation and advance the bill. The Republican James Langford, a one-time minister, a full-time rhino. He's been hardly representative of his state, Oklahoma, beaming with hubris. Langford is a do-nothing, but poses well enough. What he lacks in intellect, he more than makes up for in self-approval and pious pomposity. And within less than 24 hours, both McConnell and Langford were eating their words and disavowing the legislation with which they would have devastated this nation with higher levels of already wild spending, continued wide open borders, millions more unvetted illegal immigrants distributed across the nation, likely still in the middle of night. McConnell went from proud author to setting fire to that 370-page bill, urging Senate Republicans to block advancement of the bill, declaring it this afternoon to be dead. With us tonight to take up the bill that President Trump called a Republican death wish is Just the News founder and editor John Solomon. And on the day's appellate court denial of presidential immunity for President Trump, Congressman Eli Crane on that and much more, and the senior editor of Human Events and Navy Intel veteran Jack Posobiec to talk about the border bill, the implosion in the Senate, and the implosion of the Biden policies in the Middle East. With us tonight, former Congressman George Santos, who asked why aren't other representatives, Cori Bush, for example, not held to the same standard as he was. And Santos did say there was rampant corruption and scandal on Capitol Hill. Did he get just lucky with that, or is he a political Nostradamus? We'll find out. All of that and more coming up here tonight. Today, in the political persecution of former President Donald Trump, the D.C. Appellate Court rejected Trump's immunity claim in the January 6 case. The three-panel court wrote in its opinion that, quote, "We cannot accept former President Trump's claim that a president has unbounded authority to commit crimes that would neutralize the most fundamental check on executive power, the recognition and implementation of election results. Nor can we sanction his apparent contention that the executive has carte blanche to violate the rights of individual citizens to vote and to have their votes count." So ruled the court, and so they opined. Trump, in a previous filing, had made the argument that as president, he is immune from criminal prosecution. In fact, his argument is sound. It is consistent with the Constitution. And that's important, perhaps more important than the appellate court understands. Trump specifically argued that prosecuting a former president is in violation of Justice Department policy. How? Well, the DOJ has a long-standing policy against prosecuting current presidents. Trump also argued that because he was acquitted during the Senate's January 6 impeachment of him, he cannot be then criminally charged for the same actions, as that would constitute double jeopardy. Trump's attorney, John Sauer, made the case during oral arguments that under such a standard, George W. Bush and Barack Obama would be prosecuted after leaving office, or at least could be.
To authorize the prosecution of a president for his official acts would open a Pandora's box from which this nation may never recover. Could George W. Bush be prosecuted for obstruction of an official proceeding for allegedly giving false information to Congress to induce the nation to go to war in Iraq under false pretenses? Could President Obama be potentially charged with murder for allegedly authorizing drone strikes targeting U.S. citizens located abroad?
Both salient questions, and both, well, not rhetorical in point of fact, although they seem such. Nonetheless, the court ruled unanimously against President Trump and that argument today. It was also, as you noted from the excerpt I read, completely absurd. How exactly did President Trump violate the rights of individual citizens to vote? In fact, we would argue his decision to and desire to investigate the election did the exact opposite. President Trump was trying to ensure that every legal vote counted in 2020. So what does today's ruling mean? First, it means that for now, the criminal trial against President Trump for his actions on January 6 can proceed. That case had been indefinitely delayed by a lower court until the appellate court could issue a ruling on Trump's immunity. We don't know when that trial would begin, or if it will be underway ahead of the election, or if indeed it does move to trial. But this decision is, of course, not final, at least yet. The question of Trump's immunity does not end here. President Trump will appeal this court's decision, and a Supreme Court denial of that appeal would make the D.C. court corruption all the more evident. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts is known for considering the political implications of the court's decisions. So it's no guarantee that the Supreme Court would even hear Trump's appeal. Not a guarantee. That in and itself would be a gross dereliction of duty by the High Court. If that were to happen, the case returns to the District Court with Obama-appointed Judge Tanya Chutkan overseeing the case, ever so impartially. We can't say what will happen with this case, only time will tell. But we do know this. What we are seeing unfold is the very attack on our democracy that Joe Biden and the Marxist Dems claim to be, concerned about. They're trying to subvert the will of the people, in fact, in the upcoming election, by using the federal government to prosecute their chief political opponent. It is outrageous, it is election interference, and it will not stand. Turning now to the Middle East, the Biden administration has reversed course, a disastrous course, and on their own policy, they have to relent, thanks to their own failures. Secretary of State Antony Blinken admitted last week that the Middle East is now a dangerous region in the world, the most dangerous it's been in a half century. That's quite a turnaround from the Biden administration's position in the fall when National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan claimed in Foreign Affairs magazine that the region was quieter than ever.
The war in Yemen is in its 19-month truce. For now, the Iranian attacks against U.S. forces have stopped. Our presence in Iraq is stable. I emphasize for now because all of that can change. And the Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades.
I would argue that we've not seen a situation as dangerous as the one we're facing now across the region since at least 1973.
1973, and now the region engulfed in war, thanks to Biden's enthusiasm in large part for the deadly Iranian regime. Biden's giveaways of billions of dollars and his efforts to reinstate the Iranian deal has emboldened them. That's what Biden called building back better, I believe, and getting the adults back in the room during his campaign, the region now aflame. And now here is John Solomon. He is the founder and the editor of Just the News, Great American. John, thanks for being with us. Let's start with the big news over in the Senate. Mitch McConnell declaring his bill dead.
Yep.
I have never seen anything like this on Capitol Hill, where a bill is just killed by its creators within 24 hours.
Yeah, well, it shows you how far off they were, not just from the base of the party, but also from the pulse of the entire country. 70% of Americans have some concern about what's going on at the border. Almost everyone knows someone who died of fentanyl. They know this is a serious crisis, and somehow the bubble that these Senate Republicans lived in, they had no idea how America would react to it. And within 24 hours, they found out pretty quickly. You know what the amazing thing about this is, and I said this yesterday, there is almost no difference between the Senate Republicans and the Biden Democrats when it comes to the border, and that's extraordinary. I remember as a young reporter, 1995, January, about 29 years ago this month, I covered Bill Clinton's 1995 State of the Union address, and he opened up and said, midway through his speech, he said, listen, we're a nation of immigrants, but we're a nation of laws first. Illegal immigration hurts everyday American workers who are here lawfully, steals their jobs. It puts an undue burden on the taxpayer, and it allows people to jump the system. We're not good. The right thing to do is to stop people from coming to the country, and those who leave the country, those who get in illegally, should be deported. The Senate Republicans just created a plan that is to the left of Bill Clinton. That's why they failed so miserably and why they had to retreat in 24 hours.
And I think your observation that the Senate Republicans, most of them, I think it's fair to say, are more aligned with the Senate Democrats than they are with mainstream Republicans and moderates throughout the country, certainly independents. This is an astonishing thing because it is the hubris that it just profoundly demonstrates on the part of McConnell, Langford, who is at best a mediocre talent legislatively. And I'm being very kind when I say that. This is just insane to me that they thought they could run this through, ram it down the throats of the American people. The consent of the governed is still required, at least in this one moment of our history. We can dissent and we can demand of our government.
Yeah, no, listen, it was all the polling is in the Republicans' opportunity. They could have leveraged the American sentiments and got a real border security deal. But people like Mitt Romney and Jim Langford and Mitch McConnell clearly didn't see that they could use that power. They didn't know how to exercise their soft or their hard power in Congress. And as a result, they capitulate and they create a bill that now has created a stain on the Republican Party. And it's a huge embarrassment to disown something you just unveiled 24 hours earlier with fanfare. They're really good at it. Now, listen, there are some brave people in the Senate did the right thing. We had Ted Cruz out there right away, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, lots of big senators, Tommy Tuberville, all came out quickly and let their party know we're not falling in line with this. But that, the leadership is so disconnected, not only from the base of the party right now, but from mainstream Americans that said, listen, we really do want you to fix the border. 5,000 people a day crossing illegally is not a fix. And this blew up in their face in a big way. And it's something about the Mitch McConnell era, the later era of the Mitch McConnell Senate leadership time, he's disconnected from the reality of what Americans see. He doesn't know what it's like to be an average American. He doesn't hear their thinking or their wishes, their wants, or their needs. And this could be a very important moment in the final undoing of Mitch McConnell's leadership.
Yeah, I think Senator Mike Lee, who has come a long ways in the last 24 months on the issue of the border, on so many others, he is an America First senator in all, I think, at least in effect. So is he insinuated that this is a time for new leadership initially? The call has risen. I have called for him to be replaced immediately. There is no excuse. I think the stain that you're talking about on the Republican Party grows ever larger and darker as the days go by, that he is not replaced by someone with great merit, with great intellect, great talent, and a commitment to America first. Remember, it was President Trump who said, and it was important in this sort of vacuum of talent, for him to have said that this bill is a death wish for the Republican Party. They weren't hearing from McConnell any longer after he said that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, very quickly, Donald Trump laid down a gauntlet that Mitch McConnell wasn't willing to cross. And I think that that's a very important dynamic, which is this is still Donald Trump's party. All of the protestations aside that you used to hear on CNN and Politico and the Washington Post, New York Times, Donald Trump's dead, he's damaged goods. Donald Trump is firmly in control of the conservative movement, Republican Party, because he has his pulse on his finger on the pulse of the American people. The Senate Republicans have been locked up in a marble asylum too long. They are disconnected from what everyday Americans want of them. And I think this really exposed that. The House Republicans are pretty much in tune on a lot of things, but not the Senate Republicans.
Not the Senate Republicans. And Mike Johnson, to his credit, said the bill is dead on arrival. It turns out it won't arrive even for him to declare that finally, because of what Mitch McConnell did. Let's turn to other egregious, I think, egregiously political developments, and that is the suggestion that as you reported in Just the News, that there has been a collapse of the Biden policy in the Middle East, and you provide the evidence accordingly. This looks profound, and it looks like it could have immense ramifications in that region.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, for most of the last half century, even with Democrat presidents, always with Republican presidents, foreign policy has been built on the concept of peace through strength. And peace through strength is achieved through the 3 C's: clarity, consistency, and consequence. If you do something wrong and you violate your promise to America or the norms of the international community, there's a consequence. We're always clear about where we stand, and we're consistent in what the American requirements are, what the American interest is. Joe Biden has eviscerated all 3 of those C's, and as a result, every bad actor in the world is acting up. China, North Korea, Russia, and Iran particularly. And Iran took the money and the look the other way mentality of Jake Sullivan, and it ran up a whole bunch of military assets, and it trained Hamas, and it trained the Houthis, and it gave them drones, and it gave them missiles, and said, have at the United States, the great Satan, and Israel, the great devil. And just a few days before this extraordinary campaign of violence began with the Hamas attacks on October 7th, some of the most heinous crimes against humanity ever committed in the history of the world. Jake Sullivan is sitting, writing a piece in Foreign Affairs saying, we got this thing in the Middle East, Sal, boy. We got the best policy. Everybody, the Foreign Policy magazine had to go in and alter the article because it had been so boastfully wrong. And I think that right now, the credibility of the Biden administration in the Middle East, among our allies, quite frankly, in Europe as well, is in tatters. And the concept that they were going to have, that they were going to appease Iran into a more peaceful position, has failed. And it's always failed. Jimmy Carter failed at it 4 decades ago. And today, Joe Biden has failed even more miserably, I think, than Jimmy Carter. I think the record is now clear. The Taliban, Iran, Afghanistan, North Korea, Russia, another invasion. Appeasement never works. Our allies and our adversaries always understand if we're exercising peace through strength, not through peace through capitulation.
And you mentioned 2 members, of this vaunted national security team, the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, both talking instantly about a 2-state solution within days of the October 7th massacre. They're an obscenity. They're not just simply fatuous failures in policy. These people are disgusting. And I think just at this point now, I think this country is coming to terms with the reality of how important Israel is and how important it is that a failed administration like this stay hands-off, support Israel, and shut the heck up. I would say is the best counsel to this woebegone administration. Yeah. John Solomon, it is always great to have you with us, and we appreciate it so much. Founder, editor of Just the News, and as I said, great American. Thank you, my friend. Coming up here next, the Senate Republican caucus is in shambles after a group of senators raised hell over the disastrous open borders bill, and Mitch McConnell absolutely declared it dead. That's right, the author of the bill, the lead Republican in the Senate, having to eat that bill that they brought forth. Also, House Republicans moving forward with their impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. That's straight ahead. Please stay with us.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Welcome back. The poisonous border proposal that is now dead in the Senate, despite the worst efforts of the swamp or the sewer, whichever you prefer. Let's start with a quick recap. Sunday, the text of the bill was released in an effort to sway or to at least stall critics. But the exact opposite happened. Backlash against that deal intensified mightily. Not least of all because it allotted a paltry $20 billion for the border, and they're calling it a border bill, while setting aside about $75 billion in foreign aid, an added insult. The injury, the policies it would implement, codifying an acceptable amount of illegal immigration per day, when the number should be zero. By the way, the math worked out, it was 2 million people a year. Giving automatic work permits to asylum seekers, that was the wound they would inflict upon America. The loose change they offered us, the salt on top of it all. Oh, these elites are just beautiful, beautiful people. Senate Republicans and their Marxist Democrat colleagues were the only people surprised by the anger at this. According to the Associated Press, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell was so shocked that the American people would be appalled by this bill that he privately recommended Republican senators vote no Wednesday. Even Senator James Lankford, McConnell's GOP point man on the deal, appears, ready to acknowledge failure. Lankford telling reporters that he isn't thinking about a vote. He doesn't think it'll get there. Whenever the uniparty reaches a quote-unquote bipartisan consensus, when you hear those two words, folks, be wary. America always loses big with those bipartisan consensus bills, but it seems that backlash this time might be just too much. This deal might be too outrageous. Let's be sure we make our voices heard the next time, because that's just about all we have right now in Washington, D.C. I can't say we've got great representation. Can you? Well, House Republicans also holding Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas accountable for his facilitation of the invasion at our southern border, the border that now belongs to the Mexican drug cartels. What will the Republicans do? Joining us now is Eli Crane, Republican congressman from Arizona, former U.S. Navy SEAL. And Congressman, we thank you for being with us. I'm going to do something I don't usually do. We're going to begin with some sound and video of our guest before we even get to the interview, because what he said today at the Elise Stefanik, Matt Gaetz coming out party for defining President Trump as definitely not an insurrectionist. He had some wonderful words for particularly the Fourth Estate, the loving gathered crowd of journalists in this country who bring, just truth and justice. Here is Eli Crane.
You know what I love about this, watching where President Trump is at in the polls? I love it because it shows the American people don't trust you guys. And they shouldn't, because you guys are full of it and everybody knows it. There's a few honest journalists in this town, but they're very few and far between. You know how I know it wasn't an insurrection? Because he hasn't been charged with insurrection. And we can all see by the lawfare how he's facing up over 700 years in jail right now, how they've tried to destroy this man, destroy his businesses, that if they felt they had an inkling of a chance of convicting President Trump, of jaywalking or insurrection, they would absolutely charge him. You know how else I know it's not an insurrection? Because this is the first insurrection in the history of the world where the people that were a part of it were unarmed. It's pretty hard to do if you walk around and see how many individuals are carrying firearms. All right. Last thing I want to say about how I know it's not an insurrection is because I actually listened to the words of the president. If you're trying to stoke an insurrection, you don't tell the people listening, hey, I want you to go over there peacefully and patriotically. All right. This is not an insurrection. What it is a party that's scared to death of this man because he's America first. And he's shown time and time again he's willing to bust up the swamp. And he continues to beat you like a drum. That's what this is really about. And for all you journalists out there, you know, that are pretty cowardly, some in this room right now, you don't have the balls to write the truth. And even if you did, your publishers wouldn't publish it because you're a part of a propaganda outlet, probably one of the biggest in the history of the world. If you had any courage, I want you to ask some questions about that day, January 6th, that we keep talking about.
And there you have it, Congressman Eli Crane giving the Fourth Estate, the so-called ladies and gentlemen of the national corporatist, global elitist press corps, giving them hell, and hell they deserve on any day. But it was a delight, Congressman, for to watch you do that, and I'm delighted that you're here. Thanks for coming over and talking about it. May I begin by some questions about those that you were going to proffer for the reporters there? Well, first let me ask you this, Congressman. Did any of them then go on and ask you questions about January 6th, about Ray Epps, about the pipe bomb, about all of the tragic evidence of absolutely a government-run operation? Did they actually ask you any questions about it?
No, Lou, nobody asked me any questions. I did have to leave the press conference a little early today, but nobody wanted to ask me any questions about that. I don't think anybody wants to spend any time on that because it clearly doesn't fit the narrative.
Well, let's excuse me. Let's you and me go through a couple of those questions because I think they're right on point. How about let's start with the pipe bomber. First of all, It's been hushed up for 3 years. Those two pipe bombs, and we've got varying accounts as to what was going on, but we don't have anything from the FBI officially. So why hasn't anybody been caught, in your judgment?
Well, I think that individual was in cahoots with the federal government. I really do, Lou. I think all evidence points to it. I mean, come on. This is the most powerful law enforcement. We have the most powerful law enforcement in the world. They were able to round up, hundreds of Americans using technology like geofencing around the Capitol that day. But the one individual that, allegedly attempted multiple mass casualty events, they've yet to be able to catch. And when you start unpacking the facts and the fact that those pipe bombs were planted 17 hours before, the breach was made on the Capitol, and they were both miraculously discovered within 15 minutes of each other right before the Capitol was breached and one of them was discovered by an off-duty, officer in plain clothes who went up and told two other agents in a car that it was under a bench outside the DNC. And then when you watch the videos and they didn't react. They didn't get out of their car. They weren't frantic about it, even though Vice President Harris was in the vicinity. And then you can also see that they allowed little kids to walk by those benches as well. So there's just so much there that doesn't make any sense, Lou. And unfortunately, nobody in that press corps is asking questions about it.
It's amazing that 3 years of this nonsense, this became an orthodoxy around the January 6th. That entire January 6th committee, a sham, the indecency of it all, the absolute anti-American nature of the whole thing. We have in the Democrat, there's no such thing as a Democrat anymore. There's no such thing as a progressive or a liberal. These are Marxists, and they don't care what it takes to get to their aim. And no one should be under any illusion about that. If you vote for a Democrat this year, you're voting for Marxism. It's that straightforward. How about Ray Epps? 6 months, he gets a slap on the wrist, and away he goes. But he's one of the guys, waving people on, inciting them, clearly inciting them. Your thoughts about what he was really up to? Is he part of that federal government orchestrated activity?
Yeah, I do believe he was, Lou. And hat tip to Darren Beatty over at Revolver News. I think he's done some of the best investigative reporting on this story. Please go check out his work. He knows a lot more than I do. And I think one of the only reasons
we've had him on the show, Congressman. We've had him on the show. He's terrific, and we'll have him back. Don't worry.
You're probably one of the only outlets that would have a guy like Mr. Beatty on the show, but I'm so glad that you did. And it's one of the reasons that your viewers are so far ahead of everybody else. When you look at what this government's been doing lately, regardless of whether you look at the southern border, you look at how they're trying to censor Americans, or how they've been involved in trying to basically take out their political opponents. I mean, nothing is really beyond the pale for these people. And so you have to start asking serious questions about what happened at January 6th. You have to start asking, serious questions about a whole lot of things. And that's one of the things that I hope I'm able to continue to do while I'm up here, Lou.
Well, and we appreciate everything you are doing for this country. Tom Massey had an interesting discussion with Benny Thompson, the head of the January 6th committee, and he asked him some pretty pointed questions about that the pipe bomb. If you've ever, anybody should have that. We'll put it up here on the show. It's outrageous that the ignorance of that committee, their stupidity, as well as their just absurd, totalitarian, ideological position on just about everything. So I'd like to ask, where do you think we're going now with this border bill that just got dropped? It went up in flames. This border bill, 370 pages of ashes now, because the American people made their voice heard. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, Lou. Well, I think, and I'm so proud of the American people for getting on the phones, getting on their emails, lighting up their senators and their representatives. I know that I can tell just by talking to you that, many of them were viewers and listeners of your show. And where do we go from here? I think that you're going to see the uniparty move to do what they always do. I think you're going to get some massive supplemental. We're going to try and kill it. Will we be able to kill it? I really don't know. But I expect the uniparty to do what the uniparty does, and that's jam, hundreds of pages of crap down the American people's throat and gaslight them on the back end about how great it is.
Yeah, I suspect you're right. And I suspect that there's something different in the air, I believe, this time. And that air is being filled with the voices of the American people. I mean, they were ringing the lines off the hook on Capitol Hill. We're going to remind everybody on this this broadcast to certainly use that number for the Capitol switchboard, which is 202-224-3121. And we'll repeat it throughout and always keep it up on the screen during this broadcast. I guarantee. Don't forget
Bill Blaster, Lou.
I got you, Bill Blaster, and any of that, anything that brings your voice to the American people. And it's Bill. Is it billblaster.org?
It's just an app. It's called Bill Blaster. They can download it in the App Store. Gives you direct access to your reps and senators.
Good deal. I appreciate it. I still haven't used it, but I sure use that phone. I guarantee you. Congressman, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Good to have you. And coming up next, senior editor of Human Events, Jack Posobiec, here to weigh in on the disastrous border bill that died in the Senate today, and much more. Well, it didn't just die, it was killed. Much more coming up. Former Congressman George Santos here as well to ask why aren't other Congress people, representatives like Cori Bush, for example, not held to the same standard as he was? Santos did say there was rampant corruption and scandal on Capitol Hill. Turns out he was right. Was he lucky? Or is he a political Nostradamus? And a programming reminder, please join us each and every weekday for my podcast, 7 days a week. The podcast is called The Great America Show. We recommend it to you highly. Available at loudobbs.com, Apple Podcast, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Please make ours among them. Thanks so much.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Welcome back. Senate rhinos are running scared. By the way, so are the Senate Democrats. Mitch McConnell, though, and his buddy James Lankford are in full retreat. That rotten border deal that they tried to, shove down our throats blew up in their faces. But why was this an issue at all? Why is it that Republicans seemed so eager to help the Marxist Democrats sell America out on immigration, on border security, on foreign aid? Here is the simplest answer that we can imagine. Rhino donors want that cheap labor mass immigration brings to the country. Democrats want their new voters. Neither camp cares about the country. In fact, their policies tell us they hate it and seem to get a kick out of abusing it and us. Let's bring in the senior editor of Human Events, Navy Intel veteran, Jack Posobiec. Jack, great to have you with us. And have you ever seen the like? I haven't. McConnell having to turn into a 180 and burn up those 370 pages that he helped author.
Well, Lou, this really is a sea change for McConnell. And typically McConnell, the senator, in terms of his Senate leadership ability for the Republican side, that this is somewhere where even for folks who didn't usually like his politics, usually saw him as someone who was the master of the process, whether it be bills, whether it be negotiations, whether it be the nuclear option, whether it be holding over on keeping Merrick Garland from that United States Supreme Court seat. This is something where a lot of people had always given high marks to Mitch McConnell, yet this time seems to be an incredible misstep on his part. And so a lot of people, including, by the way, even now Senator Ted Cruz, as well as Senator Lee, are calling for possibly, and Rick Scott as well, calling for new leadership within the Senate. A lot of long knives out, I would say, for Mitch McConnell in terms of this, people saying that this has really been his last stand. And so the idea that he would take it back, and by the way, really kind of putting Lankford out, making Lankford essentially eat his own shoelaces on this one, as he was clearly been put in that position by McConnell himself to only then have his report pulled at the final hour, basically shows that I think he realizes the tide has completely shifted in this country. We are no longer interested in being a country where we have open borders, where we have a feeding frenzy at the government and taxpayer trough for foreign countries, foreign wars, foreign intervention. The American people have had a belly full of it. They are sick of it. And the United States Senate is finally waking up to this.
Yeah, they're waking up to it. By all accounts, the switchboard was burning up. and they are hearing from their constituents, and the American people are starting to get their voice and give a message. And that message is clearly, without question, that we're not going to put up with this at the polls, certainly. And the Republicans understand that. But I think there's also a very important message in all of this for the Democratic Party. There's a reason that Mitch McConnell was so important to this process, that it was necessary for him to put out a tool like Langford to take the heat. The reality is the Democrats right now, if they don't have a bipartisan front for whatever it is they try to do, they're going to be just beaten over the head. Because the country's in no mood for any more of the Marxist Dem nonsense. They no longer can pretend that this president is functional, that he's not demented and impaired in some way, that he's any more than a puppet who's serving his Marxist masters. That's very clear to the American people. This awakening has been a beautiful thing, and it's lovely to me to see something I'd never seen in my career. And that is for a Senate leader to, within 24 hours of bringing forth the legislation he had helped author, have to burn it right in front of the Capitol. It was remarkable. I don't know where we go from here. My guess is they keep trying, because they, being the establishment, they want to do that. I don't think they go anywhere if they do. What do you think?
Well, Lou, this is a message that I've had for Speaker Johnson's office, and I'll say it here as well. I said it on Human Events Daily, too, that if you guys really want to draw a line in the sand, then I would say decamp completely from Washington, D.C., hop on a flight, take it all the way down there to Eagle Pass, Texas, where, by the way, we're told that Governor Abbott's forces, the Texas National Guard, God bless them, have reduced illegal crossings there to single digits per day from the thousands that were previously crossing. So the entire House leadership should go down there, the House GOP leadership, and as many Republican senators want to join in, and say, Mr. Biden, if you want to have a conversation about the border, why don't you meet us at Eagle Pass?
Yeah, it'd be an interesting venue for them. Eagle Pass, by the way, was not very pleased with Governor Abbott when all of this began. They are at the crossroads, if you will, the intersection of the cartels, the authority of the federal government, the state government, the provincial government in Mexico. But the one controlling body is the Mexican drug cartels that are in charge of that border now, 2,000 miles of it, with moments at least of interruption by U.S. federal authorities and local state authorities. Where are we going with this? Because this conflict will be resolved not easily with the drug cartels who are making billions of dollars, sex trafficking, bringing in deadly drugs, human smuggling, illegal immigrants. This is a mess, and no one should doubt it.
Lou, it's very clear. The American people have a few months left of this but they know that President Donald J. Trump, when he returns to office, who, again, staked his entire political career, not just as a side issue, he made it the singular focus of his announcement speech there at the Golden Escalator. We all remember that day at Trump Tower when he said, I will fix this border, and he called for the building of a great wall there. The idea that we've now gone 9 years from that speech, and the issue, which of course was tapered during his presidency, has now only exploded, I think really has just proven Trump absolutely correct on this. And we are going to see for the second time, only the second time in American history, that a former president will be restored to the presidency. The American people have seen one side, they've seen the other. They know who's competent. They know who has the ability to get this done. And by the way, Lou, our Border Patrol knows how to secure the border. The Department of Homeland Security knows how to do this. The United States military knows how to do this. These are simple operations. And by the way, we've got all sorts of technology. We've now got drone technology. We've got first-person drone technology. We can secure that border immediately. What we lack is the political will in our leaders. This is what the Democrats understand, and that's why you've got their supporters in media like Morning Joe and Mika and CNN and the rest trying to claim that it's the Republicans' fault for not going along with this bill that had so much pork in it for Ukraine and other countries. They're desperate because they understand they're losing in front of the entire American people.
Can you believe, Jack, that these Marxist Dems and all, whether media, whether in government, politics, they are actually blaming President Trump when a 10-year-old would know better. This is an absurdity to watch what they're doing. They have no pride, they have no shame, and they have no refuge. They are caught now, and I think that's the great reality here, is that their abuse of power, they have overreached to such an extent now, they cannot in any way return to a status quo ante that does not, that where they were hiding out behind a veil or a curtain. They're out. Everybody sees their policy is just idiotic in terms of the Middle East, where we watched Jake Sullivan say that we've got to have a two-state solution. He ignores the massacre of October 7th. These are mindless, wantonly reckless figures who are only playing at national security. I don't think any one of them has a clue what they're talking about or the consequences of the policies they're pursuing. What do you think?
Well, Lou, it's because none of them actually are affected by any of this. Remember, they're living in their ivory towers, in their gated communities. They've got walls, of course, all around all of their communities. Their children aren't affected by this rampant violence. They aren't the ones who are in the Middle East at the bayonet end of the Iranians, their proxy groups, of Hamas, of the Russians or the Ukrainians, the poor people who are caught in the middle of this thing. It's not their children that ever face consequences because they are the ones who get paid off in the middle. They're either paid by the NGOs, they're paid off with campaign contributions on the political end, or they're given plum jobs in some contracting firm. Lou, we understand the system of the swamp. I think the American people are starting to become more cognizant of this. I think people are finally starting to realize that there are billions of dollars at stake. And to your point, whether it be the cartels or other transnational organizations, there are billions of dollars at stake in keeping this border open. And this will become, and it is actually, it's already becoming the singular issue that actually unites the right, the middle, the center, even elements of the left are finally coming over and saying, you know something, we need to do something about that border. And there is a guy down in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, that seems like he could do the job.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that there's going to be a lot of traveling toward Mar-a-Lago by a lot of politicians, particularly in the Senate. And some in the House to go down to meet with President Trump, because there has to be a reconciliation. There has to be a great reunification of the party, and they know who will be the standard bearer and who the leader is, and that is Donald Trump. I expect those journeys to start fairly quickly. This defeat of this bill that was a rancidly corrupt attack on this country from within has been defeated, and I think that augurs well. Jack, you get the last word here.
Well, Lou, I mean, I think it goes without saying that you're absolutely correct. And this shows that the uniparty has now been broken in Washington, D.C. They've been exposed. We know that the emperor has no clothes. The MAGA wing, the America First wing of the Republican Party, and those members in the Senate, in the House, understand that this is the wing of the party that is ascendant. And if you want to get on board with the future, as the media likes to say, if you want to be on the right side of history, then you better be hopping on that plane down to Mar-a-Lago right now.
Amen. I love that expression, the right side of history. The left has used it so long. It's nice to hear it, used by higher intellects. Thanks so much, Jack, for being with us. Jack Posobiec.
Thanks, Luke. God bless.
Coming up next, you too. Coming up next, Republicans always seem to be held to a different standard. No one knows this better than former Congressman George Santos. He was expelled from Congress, you remember. He was never found guilty of anything, yet some of his Democrat colleagues are treated quite differently. Why is there that disunity and that difference in a system of justice? You would think they're reflecting the real world, at least in this country. Santos, next. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Well, one of the most obvious differences between the Republican and Democrat parties is, unlike Republicans, Democrats stick together. They always defend their own, however absurd and however vile. Consider Democrats like Ilhan Omar, who's been credibly accused of marrying her brother to commit immigration fraud. Omar's also funneled millions of dollars into campaign funds, delivering them to her husband's political consulting firm, and yet the Marxist Dems don't seem to mind. They stick with her. And she's not the only one. Her fellow squad member, Cori Bush, is under federal investigation now for also allegedly misusing campaign funds. She spent hundreds of thousands of campaign dollars to hire her now husband as part of her security team. And yet the Democrats stick by her as well. You don't see Democrats like Nancy Pelosi when she was Speaker or the current Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, trying to expel those members from the caucus and the conference. As long as Omar, Bush, and other Democrat delinquents vote the right way, they'll get protection from Democrat leadership and the media. That's just how it works. Compare that, though, to the Republicans and how they treat their own. Last December, more than 100 Republicans sided with Democrats to remove Republican George Santos from Congress. It was only the 6th time in history that a member had ever been expelled from Congress. Santos was not convicted of any crime. Prosecutors had accused him of stealing campaign funds, committing fraud, and other terrible things. But again, Santos hasn't been found guilty of anything. The point is not to defend George Santos's actions, whatever you think of Santos or his actions. He should be held to the same standard as anyone else. Well, in the Democrat Party, for example, there should be equal rules, equal application of the law. You hear that? Equal application of the law. What a novel idea to the Democrats and some Republicans. So why was Santos charged and removed, but not the members of the squad? Interesting question. We thought we had asked an expert. And now here is George Santos. George, great to have you with us. Thanks for being with us on Lou Dobbs Tonight. Great to see you.
Lou, thank you for having me. That was a great way you laid it out there, but no one better to talk about this than somebody who's gone through the ringer with Republicans in the House, so-called conservatives. Cori Bush right now, we're expecting something to come down the line for her. Where's the standard there? Is she going to be expelled too? Because this is what the House of Representatives set precedent just in December. Is Cori Bush next? Are we going to get Ilhan Omar next? And the reality is, when are we going to stop lying to the American people that Congress is working for them, when in reality it's a dog and pony show and it's a free-for-all of Republicans and Democrats just going out with lobbyists, having a great time, and at the end of the day, the American people are really the ones becoming the big losers. So I'm waiting for Cori Bush's and Ilhan Omar's expulsion, and it should happen rather expediently. One has openly pledged allegiance to Somalia. So she doesn't represent Minnesota. She, in fact, represents Somalia. And then the other one apparently spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of public funds to pay for her security detail. And then on top of that, to pay for her husband's to do her detail with no experience and no background in this industry whatsoever. So here's the deal. Well, what is it, Lou? I mean, I understand it's innocent until proven guilty, but the House of Representatives changed that precedent, that historic precedent. And now it's you're guilty until proven innocent. And if you're charged, you got to go.
Well, and in your case, that's precisely, you just described what the situation was. You hadn't been found guilty of anything. Due process had not been executed, let alone exhausted. How do you feel today about why you were treated in the way you were by the previous speaker and the House of Representatives?
Well, here's what I'll say. Speaker McCarthy, believe it or not, to his credit, I never got expelled. There were 2 attempts, and he wielded and dealed his power and kept me there because he knew how disastrous it would be. He knew the precedent it would set, and it was a dangerous, slippery slope. Due process is very important. It's part of the fabric of our country. Unfortunately, for some of my colleagues, it's not how it worked. It's all about political expedience. They wanted me gone for multiple reasons. You had members like Nick LaLota, Anthony D'Esposito, Mike Lawler being questioned by their conservative constituents. You say all these bad things about George Santos, but he is the most conservative Republican in the state of New York. I hold that as a badge of honor. I campaigned as a conservative. I campaigned on conservative values. I called abortion abhorrent and barbaric 3 weeks before Election Day. People were already voting in my district. My entire campaign thought that I blew my actual congressional race. And they said, I think you should go and try to mitigate it. And I said, no, I'm not. It's what I believe. And I went through with my political views. I never backtracked from a single one of my political promises, and I voted like a true conservative. And to the left, it was just unbecoming of them to have a gay man who was this convicted and conservative. So I was convicted in my beliefs.
You think it's that simple?
I believe so, Lou, because if you really look at it, if we're talking about what I was accused of and I'm still going through the process, there was no conclusion to the process. There was no conclusion, there was no conviction yet.
Right.
So the people are saying, you're guilty, you're guilty. And not only that, they influenced the jury. So now I'm going to a potential trial now in September with a jury that, heavily believe that the House of Representatives has condemned me and convicted me and expelled me. I am pretty much at the mercy of now having to flip a narrative if I go to trial on how to overcome this massive hump in my defense, because the people that are elected by the people already.
Is there any recourse? I'm sorry, George. Is there any recourse for you with the House and the way in which you were treated?
There are some very nuanced approaches you can take. It would cost millions of dollars. And quite frankly, I don't want to light money on fire to go sit in the same room as people that I wouldn't want my worst enemy to be in the same room as.
Yeah. So where is your path forward here? You have been a victim of the Republican conference without question, and the process which denied you due process, frankly. What is your path forward?
Look, to me, my path forward, Lou, is I have adopted a radical approach to truth and transparency, one that hurts, one that people don't like, because now I'm going to say it like it is, everything I experience, deliver receipts for them, and it's bothering folks. But I think it's the only way you come out of something like this is by being abundantly and aggressively transparent with the American people. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go through the process with the DOJ. I have full faith that I'm able to come out of that on top, and I move forward. Again, I'm 35 years old. I'm not done. I'll be back.
Well, you had some pretty good calls in terms of talking about the corruption, the what would I say, the culture of the place on Capitol Hill. You've been proved right on much of that. How do you feel, at least, about getting some of that right?
Oh, vindicated. You know, when I called and I said that Capitol Hill was a cesspool of promiscuity and that kind of behavior, people said I wasn't telling the truth. I was vindicated. When I said that the GOP leadership was too worried figuring out how to cut deals to get even with the special interest in Washington, D.C. by passing CR on top of CR, I was vindicated because here we are. It's 2024. We're still passing CRs, Lou. Look, there's so many things I put out there that nobody expected me to, so many things that I brought to light that people were frantic and creating crafty responses to. But hey, insider trading, it exists. And it's a well-known thing in D.C.
Yeah. It's not only does it exist, it's been institutionalized, for crying out loud. George, it's great talking with you. Let's talk as you go forward, and stay in touch. We appreciate you being with us tonight, and I think the American people want to hear what you've got to say.
A great honor to be with you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Before we go, we thought we'd check in with our president, the leader of the free world. And here he was yesterday talking about recently meeting with a former French president. A former French president because he's been deceased for decades.
Right after I was elected, I went to what they call a G7 meeting, all the NATO leaders. It was in the south of England. And I sat down and I said, America's back. And Mitterrand from France looked at me and said, you know, why, how long are you back for?
Hard to take, isn't it? The man is impaired. There's no question about it. Yet, for some reason, the corporate globalist elite national media does not want to report what they see, let alone what they know, when it comes to this puppet president, who is not only cognitively impaired, but he is compromised, and everyone pretends that he's a president. He is not. He is a cardboard cutout. He is a puppet serving his masters, and they are Marxist all. Well, please, if you would, join us each and every day for the Great America Show, my podcast on 7 days a week. That's right, on my podcast, The Great America Show. We invite you to join us. I hope you will at LouDobbs.com, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, we're available. Thank you for being with us. Please join us tomorrow here at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central. Big show tomorrow. We have Kash Patel, Julie Kelly, Tom Fitton, Congressman Tim Burchett is back with us. And the Lindell Report begins, well, just moments away. It's next, and you don't want to miss it. Take it away, Mike. Good night, everybody. God bless you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lindell Report. That was the great Lou Dobbs tonight.